Today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast is brought to you by Toro Australia, and more specifically their new 60-volt Revolution Professional battery tool lineup. If you're interested in that, more about it later in the podcast. Thank you, Toro Australia. All right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. We have a very special episode because on the other side of this camera is a man, I should say, by the name of Dan Cahill, who started off at Maccas and 7 years later has got 200 plus franchises underneath him at Jim's Mowing and is even considering going to America. In fact, it's part of the plan. The story is insane. I've heard your story, Dan, on Gary's podcast a while ago. I've seen you with Joel talking on the Jim's podcast. I wanted to get you on because I think you have one of the more unique stories in the industry. And I actually really appreciate what you do. So, mate, welcome to the podcast. How are you going?
Yeah, I'm going good, thanks, Luke. I appreciate you reaching out to me and asking me to do this podcast. I'm pretty excited to be able to tell people what I've been up to.
So, what do we start with? Because most people don't know this, but some people won't know your story to start with. But they also would be very surprised to hear that Jim's Mowing is going to be expanding to Florida, and that's what you're working on. That's what you've been working on for a long time, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm working on. Where do we start? I mean, there's probably going to be people listening to this podcast that have no idea who I am. If you want, I can give you a bit of a brief rundown about how it is that I'm got to where I am now and where I started from as to here.
Well, let me do my best to set this up then, because what I understand of your story is that you were at McDonald's. Not doing anything crazy at McDonald's, right? You were earning pretty standard stuff, and you have a family to look after. You kind of hit a financial roadblock, and something needed to change. And then 7 years later, you've got stories where you've been doing $20,000+ a week from a mowing business. You're now helping 200 plus people in the franchise. That's an amazing story. So take me back to McDonald's. What was the breaking point where you decided, I need to do something? Like, what was the pressure like? Because I think there's a lot of people in here just starting out with that who get into the industry for a very similar reason to you.
Well, when I was at Maccas, the reason that I decided to join up with Jim's Mowing was I felt like it was almost like I was pushed into doing something like this. Like, it was always going to happen. And the reason I say that was because we had issues, me and Mel, which were pretty serious financial issues. We also had issues where we were both, I suppose, pretty sad at the time just because everything was the same sort of thing. We had financial issues, we had whatever issues, no time for each other. And I went, right, well, something needs to change. What am I going to do? And I bought this house across the road from my wife's parents. And I went to an auction to buy this house, and that's where it all began, because this house that I bought across the road, it seemed like a fantastic idea at the time. I'd sold the house that we were in, I had enough for a deposit and all the rest of it. And I bought this house, and I spent an extra $100,000 on this house than what it was worth. And the mortgage was $1,000 a week, or a bit over $1,000 a week over 30 years. And my Macca's wage, we would just get by, me and Mel. But we had one kid and we were looking, we had another one on the way. And I was like, there's no way we're going to be able to do this. Like, something needs to change. I need to start earning more and I need to provide for my family. So that's I suppose, how it all sort of began. And I looked at different business models, and I found the Jim's Mowing business model. Now, within that time, between it, I'd gone and tried to do other jobs that were higher paying. I tried to be a truck driver, and I was a roof plumber for a while, as a labourer sort of thing, and it just wasn't my thing. And the pay would only increase after a certain amount of years of experience, and that's when I went, all right, well, I need to get a business. That's going to be the only way out of this, and I don't know how to run any business at all. I don't know what I'm doing, but I seen the mowing businesses pop up, and I just went, this sort of seems like it's like fate almost. Like, it feels like it's right. And when I get a good feeling about something, I just go, right, I've got this feeling. This is it. This is the one.
So
So
when
that's about.
when you started, and you're jumping in to the deep end, running your own business, how long did it take you before you realized, oh wow, this has got a lot of potential? Like, this is the answer we were looking for the financial stuff we were going through.
It took me 2 weeks. 2 weeks to figure that out. 2 weeks after I started the business. Sorry, I should say. So what had happened was I went and we borrowed money from my mother-in-law to be able to start the business. We didn't have enough money, the 35 grand that it cost or so to buy the business. So I had to borrow money from my wife's mum. Truthfully, I didn't have the guts to go and ask my mother-in-law. I got my wife to do it for me. So we got that done. I went and did the training. I organized everything for the business. And after the training, I come out with this, like, I don't know what it was, but it was just this like motivation and this idea of I can do this. And I'd heard Jim's story, and that pumped me up a fair bit. And I just had this idea of if I mow a lot of lawns, I'll make a lot of money. And that was like what just went through my head non-stop. And first week in, I just went, you know what? I'm gonna sacrifice my life pretty much. Like I don't care about myself right now. I'm just gonna make sure that I can provide for my kid, for Isla, the one we had at the time. He was 2 years old, and my Mel was pregnant, so Annie as well. And I'm just going to push myself to the limit and just see what I can do with this business. And I started working 7 days a week. And first week in was torture as it is for pretty much everyone. And I I woke up at 6 a.m., got to my first job at 6:55 a.m., started the mower at 7 a.m., and I didn't finish mowing until usually 7 p.m. Depending on daylight savings. If I could no longer see the grass, obviously I wouldn't mow.
Yeah.
And first week in, I made 3,600, and that was fantastic. And second week in was where I realised there was an issue, which was I didn't have enough work for the second week, and so I had to learn how to do marketing to bring the work in. I had to use the gym's resources that were there, go through the unserviced leads, network, and all the rest of it. And from doing that, I was able to market enough and bring enough work in to make $50 more than I made the first week. So I made 3,650, and that was when I knew I'm onto something, because now there's nothing stopping me, because I know how to bring the work in and I know how to get it done.
You started hiring people, right? Like, you didn't just like stop there. You kept going, you kept pushing, you kept growing. What was the next 6, 9 months, 12 months like? Because I think from what I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, that something just clicked in you and you were like, oh my goodness, like, what an opportunity. I'm going to work as hard as I can to make the most of this opportunity. And that's one of the things that I think sets you apart from a lot of other people. Like, maybe it was the financial pressure, maybe it's just how you're wired, but there was something there that, like, you just kept pushing.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I felt like I can't really explain it, but I felt like I had this like hidden potential that I hadn't really tapped into yet, and I'd always sort of felt like that. And I was like, I feel like there's something here. I feel like I've got more to give, and I really want to see what it is that I'm capable of. And I kept working 7 days a week, and I was working as hard as I possibly could. And I got to the point where I was earning about $5,000 a week, which was where I hit my first roadblock. And I was still doing 7 days a week and working ridiculous hours, but I hit this roadblock of I don't have any more hours to work anymore. I've got the work coming through, but I just don't have enough hours. And that was where I realized that I needed to put my customers' prices up, because I wasn't charging enough, and especially with the existing regulars I had as well, they weren't priced at enough. They were under $1 a minute, and it was, I was wearing myself out. But I had all these new customers that were willing to pay $2 a minute or more, and I was like, why am I getting stuck doing all these customers for $1 a minute when I could be earning more? So I put my customers' prices up, and that was like pretty risky, but the way I did it was I just did one at a time. So whoever had the lowest price per minute, so I timed the jobs and then figured out how much they were worth, and then you figure out your price per minute. I went to whoever was the lowest price per minute, and I'd give them a price rise to get them up to $2 per minute. Of course, heaps of people said no. Like, that's quite obvious it's going to happen, especially when you're telling them you're doubling their price. But I would just replace them with a new regular. So I would continue marketing. I'd continue taking on work from gyms, and every time I'd put a customer's price up, I would bring on a new regular, just in case they said no. And if they did say no, well, the business was in no worse position. And
Yeah.
so it took me about 2 months to get the business to the point where I was happy with all the prices and they were all at $2 a minute. And then that was 6 months in. And at that point, I was earning about maybe $7,000 per week, which is where I hit the next bottleneck, which was I didn't have enough time, but also the prices were really good.
Yeah.
Which is, I upgraded my equipment, and I also went and hired my first employee, which was just my younger brother.
Well, I'm just thinking about that. Like, what a change in 6 months. Because, like, you're talking about $7,000 a week. Obviously, like, there's something. It seems like you said, this thing was fate. Like, it just matched your personality and the drive that you had and the need that you had. But to go from I'm struggling to make ends meet, I can't survive off the wage that I'm on, to $7,000 a week, and obviously there's expenses in that, right? But like, you're taking home more than $1,000.
Yeah, I probably was taking. Truthfully, it was probably about half that I was taking home. So about $3,500 or so after you pay your GST expenses, your income tax. I reckon it's about half that you're left with. And so I was like, that was fantastic for me. And that I started working with my brother, and me and him were pumping out jobs, and it was great for a while until it wasn't, because naturally you get sick of your brother after working with him non-stop. He was only doing 5 days a week. He was taking it a bit easy, and then what I did was I set him up, because I got sick of him. I set him up to look after regular mowing clients, because I knew he could handle them, and he would make me $700 per day, and I was paying him $30 per hour, casually, and it made sense. And I went, well, this is working out. He's making me $3,500 a week. And after I've paid his labour and work cover and all the rest of it, maybe I've spent $1,700 or $1,800 on him, for the week, but I've still made $3,500. So it was a pretty good business model. Not that I really gave it much notice, because I was so focused on just doing my own thing at the time that I wanted to keep doing these once-off jobs and making more money. And after another 6 months, from just doing these once-off jobs and giving them all a quote after I'd done a service for them for an ongoing service, naturally you get people that are just going to say yes to the prices, like 1 in 3, 1 in 4. And I had another mowing round ready. So I had another 80 regular clients, for 2 weeks, and it was time to bring on another employee and get him to make me $700 per day.
I think this is where one of the things that people get sucked in. There's some advice that you see on, or there's some information you might see on the internet which sounds good at face value, but I don't think it is. And one of those things is when people brag that they've never done paid advertising. Because what you're talking about there is when you charge higher prices, you are going to lose a lot of opportunity. But if you're getting a lot of opportunity, it doesn't matter. If you're getting 10 opportunities a week and you're winning 2 out of 10, you might go, oh, well, I'm losing 8. But it's like, well, hold on a second. You're making a lot more money because you're charging so high. And people feel in their gut, like spending $20 on a lead that doesn't get me anything, right? Or whatever their advertising costs are. They feel like they're wasting money. But if you're charging $20 more for a new client, as you're charging $20 over what you're normally getting, and it's a regular client, you're making hundreds of dollars more over the year. And you can increase your hourly rate. And this is a strategy that I think a lot of people don't do. They have this word of mouth mentality that low costs equals good. And sometimes it does. I don't want to be too simplistic about it. But like what you're saying there, like it just makes sense. You get a lot of opportunity in, you raise your prices, you are spending money on it. Like you said, you're spending probably $3,500 on the stuff to run your business. But if you're making $7,000 a week, you're taking home $3,500. Like, what a deal. What a fantastic. Obviously, you're working a lot of hours, so some people might not want to work 7 days. But it's just common sense. Very simple strategy, but it works.
Yeah. Well, I believe that you need high demand in your business. If you have high demand of customers coming through, then you have control over the business. If you don't have high demand, then you're in a vulnerable position, because you start having to charge lower prices to be able to make sure that you can afford to pay, your mortgage or your bills or whatever it is that's coming through, your tax every 3 months, and it's that's the stresses that get put onto these contractors and franchisees and all the rest of it. But I just think if you create high demand and you've got all this work coming through because you've done the right marketing and you've paid for it, or you've got gyms or whatever it is that you're doing, it doesn't matter. Then you can afford to put your prices up, because if you're doing already 40 hours a week of regular clients, maybe let's say, screw it, we'll say you're doing 60 hours a week, just for a hypothetical, and you have someone else, a customer, come up to you and say, I want a quote for this type of work. If you're already doing 60 hours a week and you can't really fit it in, naturally you're going to quote the job higher, because you're going to go, well,
Yep.
if I do this job, I'm going to have to work the weekend, or I'm going to have to, it's going to take out time where I can't watch the footy, or whatever it is that you're doing. And so you go, well, I need to get a bonus for this. And so because you're in high demand, you can charge higher prices. And that was something that I learned very quickly. And that's the reason why I was able to charge $2 a minute very quickly. And this is even going back, 7 years ago, I was charging $2 a minute. And it was because I had the demand coming through. And for jobs that you really didn't like doing, you can push it higher than that. If you're doing chainsawing where it's dangerous, or you're doing gutters where it's, you're working at heights, or whatever it is, you can charge high prices because you've got high demand.
I think so much of what goes wrong with a business comes down to that. And I just challenge people like that. Is this a belief that you haven't examined? Do you believe that it's better to be cheap than to be getting work in the door? Do you believe... I had a conversation with a guy the other day who... we were just talking about these unexamined beliefs that you have. And I don't want to give away too much personal information here, but basically this guy was kind of asking these questions, and he was saying like, oh, I don't think I can do that. And I was like, why? Why do you not think you can do that? I don't know. I'm not really... It just feels like it doesn't make sense. Oh, just explain it to me. And then they go, oh, I can't really explain it. And it's like, well, maybe you should just try. Why don't you just try for a week, see what happens? And a lot of people go, oh, yeah. Like with the marketing stuff, okay, let's go, you're going to do some marketing. Chuck something on Facebook, get some buzzer leads, or, if you're in gyms, pay some stuff. Why don't you just go, let's put aside $500, get a bunch of leads, get a bunch of opportunity, and just see what happens. Because maybe you do start raising your prices, and maybe over the next year that $500 turns into $3,000 more in once-off work, and all of a sudden you get all these regulars from it, and you go, man, I'm going to do this every month. Why not just try?
I just don't see how you can go wrong investing in lead generation. It just that's what it is to me. I don't see it as an expense. I see it as an investment, because I don't know what your rates are, but for most leads, like an average lead, let's say it's just a regular mow. Well, that regular mow is only $80 per visit, but over the space of a year, that's like $2,000 worth of work. If it's just a one job, most of your one-off jobs are maybe $200-300, whatever it is. Whatever you've put into advertising, I guarantee that you've spent a lot less than that. I just don't see how people can cheap out on investing in lead generation. And it doesn't matter what form it is. I mean, gyms is a form of lead generation. All the other franchises are forms of lead generation. Doing simple stuff on Facebook or Google Ads or whatever it is that you're doing is all forms of lead generation.
Yeah. I think it's an unexamined thought for a lot of people. Some people, they get full and they think that marketing is to fill your books. But what you're talking about is marketing is improving your books. You looked at your hourly rate and you were like, I can get more. So I'm going to market not to work more hours, but to get higher quality clients.
That's exactly it, yeah. And you have control of your business. I'm sure there's a lot of contractors out there right now that are just like, geez, I wish I could earn more than $2,000 a week or whatever it is. Or I wish that, if I had, this one really good contractor come through, then maybe I can get rid of this old customer that always leaves the dog poo laying around and refuses to pay for me to pick up the dog poo and doesn't pay on time and takes a month to pay or whatever it is. But it's like, well, if you want that to happen, you need to make a change. And that change is very clear. It's create demand in the business so that you can do that, so you can take control of it.
Looking at getting a new battery tool lineup for your business this spring, have a look at the new Toro 60 volt Revolution Professional series. I recently had the opportunity to head down to the Brisbane headquarters of Toro, and I got my hands on some of these tools, and I can honestly say that there's some really well-built tools. The Revolution series runs off the 60-volt Flex Force system, and it powers a whole range of tools, including line trimmer, hedge trimmer, blower, and the 21-inch heavy-duty 60-volt mower. The line trimmer and the hedge trimmer can be run through the onboard batteries, just like you would expect, but also through the backpack linkage, which means that if you have large commercial jobs, it lightens the load and makes it a much easier job for you. There are a lot of interesting innovations in this lineup, including a 6-port multi-charger that you can put on the wall, which is really useful if you're running and relying on a battery system. And like I said, there's a whole lineup of tools ready to go for your business on this platform. So if you want to find out more information, head to the Toro website. There's a link in the description, or to your local Toro dealer. Thank you, Toro, for sponsoring this part of the podcast. All right, so mate, we're back. We just had some internet issues. I tried doing too much and everything crashed. But you were talking about you got to a point, you improved your client list, and then you kept growing after that. And we talked about this off air, and it's interesting to talk about now. You got to a point where you're doing $20,000+ a week, and you had 6 staff. So what was the transitional, like what changed in your thinking from there? How did you grow to that point? Because a lot of people, that's where they would love to be in business.
Well, I do need to mention that $20,000 per week was revenue. It wasn't profit. So just in case anyone's wondering, my profit was much less than that, probably around half. But how I did it was, after bringing on my second employee and getting him to make me $700 per day and him getting paid $30 per hour, I eventually ran into this roadblock where I kept on working. I was working for a year and a half straight. And by this point, I built up another one of these mowing rounds of regular clients. And I'd hired another employee. I just hired friends and family to do work for me in the business. And so this roadblock I hit was I actually burnt myself out. So a year and a half in of working 7 days a week and just as hard out as I possibly could. I burnt out pretty badly, and I went through depression. I went through a depressive state, and I was just this person that, I wouldn't even recognize today. And it was just issues with, my mental state, wanting to give up, wanting to sell the business, just so exhausted and tired of doing it all day, every day, and my life being like Groundhog Day. And then I felt like I was just, as I said, I was done. And then I come up with this idea. I was 3 months in of just sitting in my bedroom playing games on my computer and having my wife just do the schedule, contemplating selling this business off. And I just went, you know what? I want to give this another crack, but if I'm going to give it another crack, I don't want to do the work I'm doing. I don't want to do the once-off jobs and the big garden cleanups that I'm doing. I'm sick of them. I don't want to do all these big hedge trimming jobs and hand weeding. I want to do regular lawn mowing. And I want to do it with someone. I like the social aspect. So I went out and I started working with the third employee I hired, Tristan. And that helped out because I was able to train him a lot better as well, instead of just relying on my brother to do it. And me and him just went out and pumped out regular mowing jobs, and it went really, really well. And what I found was my other employees, Jason and Alex, were doing really well as well, because if we would fall behind on our jobs, then they would jump in and help us catch up. If they would fall behind, then I would jump in and help them catch up. And what actually happened was Alex got to a point where he started saying that he could take on more work. And so I said, well, how about you take on $800 a day worth of work, and I'll give you an extra $5 an hour. And he said, yeah, that's fantastic. And that worked out really, really well. And the same thing happened with Tristan as well. And so I put Tristan up to $35 an hour, and he made me $800 a day. And eventually I put Tristan up to $900 a day and paid him $40 an hour. And I had this idea of, if they're going to make me more money, then I'm going to pay them more money. And that gave them more respect for me. So they wanted to keep working. They wanted to really help grow the business. And so I continued to just really hammer down on this local area marketing and just do everything I possibly could to get work coming through, and doing magnet letterbox drops and going out and seeing real estate agents and cold calls to previous clients and just everything. And I within another 6 months, I had another mowing round, and another person making me $700 a day. And as it goes, within 3 years, I had 6 blokes working for me, all doing $700 a day for me every day. Some guys earning more, and each of them making me 3.5 grand a week, and the business was making over $20,000 a week. And of course, you'll have your bad weeks, and you'll have employees that won't turn up, and they'll be sick, and it'll rain, and you won't be able to do jobs, and you'll have to push them back, and whatever problems happen. But yeah, for the most part, that was how the business was running, and I intended on continuing to run it that way until it was that Jim came and spoke with me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in becoming a franchisor?" And
what's the role of a franchisor? Because I get mixed up with franchisee, franchisor. But why don't you give us, for people who don't know at all what this is, what's Jim talking about when he's coming and offering you that role?
So a franchisor is someone that looks after franchisees in a certain part of the franchise. So you'll have, back in the day, you used to have a franchisor that would run all of Queensland. You would have one that would run Victoria. You'd have one that would run South Australia, all the rest of it. And they would look after the franchisees in that area, just because Jim didn't have time to look after all these franchisees. He wasn't capable of doing it. And so it's sort of like a mini gym almost. And so, you make sure that they're, adhering to the franchise agreement, and they're not getting too many customer complaints. And most importantly, you coach them on how to run their business, especially because a lot of these people are brand new franchisees that, they start up with a franchise because they want support and they want guidance. And so you become this coach to these people and really mentor them and show them how to start it off and how to run this business and how to make it successful. And that was, for me, that was the role. It was like, how do I coach these franchisees to do better? And of course, you've got to recruit new franchisees as well, into the business, because if you're not recruiting, then there's less trailers on the road, which means there's less work coming through for everyone. So you sort of, the more trailers on the road, the better it is for everyone. And I just felt like I could coach these franchisees on how to grow really, really good businesses. And it got to the point where I ended up, I did really, really well with coaching these franchisees in this Brisbane region when I first took over. That Jim came to me 6 months later, which was very, very quick, and said, "Would you like to be the franchisor for North Queensland also?" Now you have to buy into it. So the first region I bought, I did a 50-50 split with Jim. So he was a 50% owner of the business, but I was the franchisor and also 50% owner. Yep. And it cost me $465,000 for that region. And then the second region I bought, I can't remember, I think it was somewhere around 250 or 300,000 that I bought for the North Queensland area. And that's how it continued on. So, after that I went and got Northern Territory. I went and got Central New South Wales, which covered from like Bathurst to Broken Hill and Dubbo and all in between. I went and got Southern New South Wales, which is like Nowra, Southern Highlands down to the border, Eden, Bega sort of area. And I also went and got Central Queensland as well later on. So it sort of filled in that empty patch that I had in Queensland, so in the middle. And continue to grow.
Well, that's 200 plus franchises now, right, that you're looking after. And those people, some of them would be new that you're training up. Some would be there for a while, and they wouldn't have that many questions. But that's a huge amount of responsibility.
It certainly is. But for me, it was just like this. I wanted to just continue to improve on, not only improve myself, but improve my franchisees. And so when something's in front of me, or when I've got to get something done, it's not even a question. I get it done and I'll make time for it. So yeah, it was a lot of responsibility, and people say, I work too hard, but it doesn't feel like that for me, because every day now feels like a bit of a reset. You make sure you get at least 8 hours sleep every night. You make sure you're eating good food and all the rest of it, and you go, well, I got plenty of energy again today. So but it is a lot of responsibility. But I also have, I got existing franchisees that were very successful franchisees, and I asked them to become coaches within the region. And so I paid them $88 per franchisee per month that they looked after. I've got three of them, and each of them look after 65-ish, 70. And I give them half price franchise fees and all the rest, and they do a fantastic job, and they call every franchisee every week, and usually Monday mornings, and just give them like someone to speak to, like, and someone to give guidance to. A lot of these franchisees that are existing and have been around for a while, they like just having the routine of knowing that someone's going to call them on Monday and check in how they're going, so that they can say how their week's been.
Yep. So we're rushing through stuff here, but a big part of this story is that you're now wanting to go to America. And that's a very interesting challenge, because you would hear about people in America going to other countries, Canada, Europe, whatever. But for somebody from Australia to then go and expand into America, that's got to be a huge challenge. Where did that idea come from? And at what have you thought about, questioning yourself and going, am I a little bit too crazy here at some point,
Yeah, yep. So that idea had started about a year after I started in Jim's Mowing. So I was still a franchisee. I did a podcast with Jim, on a live podcast, and what had happened was, after that podcast, it went really well. One of the first times Jim had ever met me, and he was quite impressed with how well I was doing in business. And he said to me, he goes, "I love your motivation and your enthusiasm to continue to improve." He goes, "I'm really interested in seeing where you are in the future and where you get to." And obviously I had no idea, and I said, "Honestly, Jim, I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing. I'll probably still be with Jim's Mowing." And he said, "No, you won't." I was, "All right." And he goes, "But if you are," he goes, "you should seriously consider looking at one day running America." He goes, "Someone with your sort of personality would really make it work, and we've tried it before and it didn't work out. And I'd like to see you do that one day if you are still with us." And him saying that just went, "Whoa, there's huge potential here." Like, what a compliment from him, of course. And that was when I decided to make that jump from franchisee to franchisor. That was a big part of it in the back of my mind, because I was like, this is natural progression. Like, this feels like fate. I need to learn how to be a franchisor if I want to go, start Jim's Mowing in America, and I need to do it really, really well. And so I've always had this thing just pushing me to go, I'm going to do the best job I possibly can. I'm going to work non-stop, and I'm going to make sure that I run this region really well. And, people come to me and they say, "Dan, do you ever look back and think, oh my God, I'm now the franchisor of Jim's Mowing Northern and Eastern Australia, and, you have the largest region in Jim's Mowing. Like, how insane is that for you?" But for me, I don't really see it that way, because the way that I see it is, the job's not done yet. Like, I haven't finished doing what I've got to do yet. It's on to the next step. How do I get to that next step?
Do you feel like it's back to that thing that you talked about when you were at McDonald's, or before you even started the business, where you felt like you had this potential that was unfulfilled?
Yeah, I did. I felt like that, and I suppose in my life I've never really had something that gave me this freedom and limitless potential to be able to really show what I had. Like, when you're at Maccas, you're just doing your 40-hour weeks, and you come in, you do your shift, and you go. But as soon as I was in front of that lawnmower, it was just like, wow, if I mow a lot of lawns, I'll make a lot of money. And that was just always in the back of my head. And I just went, well, I'm going to mow a lot of lawns. I'm going to mow more lawns than anyone could ever think was believable. And I pumped it, and I just didn't stop. And I was just like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I've got this potential. I really want to see like what I'm made of, because for me, it's not, this is going to sound weird, but it's not really the money that does it for me. Money is a great tool to be able to use to get what you want in life, but the reason I do stuff isn't just because I want money. It's I want to be able to, one day when I'm retired and I'm 65 years old, or I don't know what the retirement age will be by the time that we're that old, probably 85 years old or something. Let's be honest.
103, yeah. Let's keep going to get any sort of pension.
Yeah. But I want to go, well, this is my story, and this is what I did with my life. And, no one gets there and go, oh, well, I made $4 billion in my life. It's usually, well, they tell you about the journey that they had. And for me, that's the thing. this is the journey that I've had, and this is what my life has been about. And I'm always going to be a father first before a business owner. That's always going to be my main priority. But for something that I want to be able to look back on and talk to my kids about it, my grandkids and all the rest of it, and say, well, this is who I was. I want to, I suppose, leave a mark with them and show them that no matter what, even from the worst upbringing or the worst education or whatever it is, because I was expelled from my first high school and dropped out of my second high school. You can really have a go of it, and so that's why I do what I do, I think. And I follow what seems like the natural progression. And as I said, I do believe it's almost like your story's already sort of drawn out for you, and you've just got to follow it.
From your experience, is success in business more about your strategy and how you tackle it, or is it more about your work ethic and your commitment to making it work?
Well, there's a bit of both in that. For me, I want to improve. That's my main thing. I just want to improve and do better than I did last week or last month or whatever it is. But also, my main thing that I think is the reason why I succeed is because of my routine. Now, most people can understand this. Like, you get sick of mowing lawns all day, every day. There's a point where you're just pushing it up and down. It's like you go to a place that's, I don't know, 1,000 square meters or an acre or whatever it is, and you're stuck with a push mower for the day or whatever. And you're just doing lines up and down, and you're just like, I just can't wait till I'm done with this job. Yeah. But while that's happening, I'm thinking, well, how can I improve? And what can I do to make myself better in the future? What can I do to save seconds here? And for me, it's routine. I wake up every day at the same time, and I have the same routine every single day, and it works. And because you find something that works really well in your business, and you stick with it. You don't change it. If it's working well, you stick with it. And even to this day, I have a very structured routine, and it works really, really well for me in my business.
What are the parts of that your routine that do you think give you the best return on time invested? What are the parts of the routine that are the best uses of your time that other people listening could copy?
I think it's just prioritizing whatever's important at that moment. So, like when I was running my mowing business, it was all about communication. So making sure that you message your clients the night before. That way, when you're out there for that day, you're not getting to a job and them saying, oh, I don't actually want it mowed today. It doesn't need to be mowed, so you have to go to the next job instead. You send them all a message, and then you go out there and you do the job. Now, that's one part of it. Another part of it is making sure that you always get at least 8 hours of sleep. Like, your routine starts from the day before. Like, if you miss that and you're trying to, whatever it is, stay up late because you feel like you've worked all day and you want some me time or whatever it is, it's like you've just set yourself up for failure because you couldn't make a mature decision and go to bed at a reasonable time so that you can wake up and get a good start to the day. And then me and my wife are a team, and we work really well hand in hand. So everything is communicating between each other as well. So I make sure I constantly contact her and let her know where I'm at. And if I am falling behind, she'll let the customer know. Or if I'm ahead, she'll let the customer know that I'm going to be there early. It's just finding little things that you can do just to, make everything a bit more efficient, I suppose, and give yourself the best chance.
So you talk to a lot of people. You've got the trainer, description on your shirt there. So a lot of guys coming through gyms talking to you, right? They're coming to the head office. Are you at the gym's head office right now?
No, I'm at home at the moment. Right. So, but I work from home. But it's usually every 3 to 4 weeks. We'll have in franchisee induction training. So all the new franchisees from all the divisions. And, these days, something like 55 gyms group divisions. They all come through and they do generic franchisee training. And I do a session right before gym on the Wednesday and teach them how to build their business up and, give them my story and how to create demand in their business and market it and just little tips and tricks on, quoting and basic things like that. And so every franchisee from every division that started within the last 4 years would have met me.
So when you're talking to those people, is there stuff that comes up where straight away this person does not have what it takes? or this person is on shaky ground, like there's something off. Does that happen?
Oh, absolutely. And the reason that you can sort of tell is because your business is based off the customer service that you're giving. A lot of people think that we're just here to mow lawns, and that's my job is to mow lawns. But well, no, my job here is to satisfy the client and give good customer service and have more work coming through because of that, because you've given such great service. And so you can usually tell when you meet someone what they're going to be like when they talk to people. You meet people that are quite arrogant, and you go, oh, well, if you've got that sort of personality, I wonder how you're going to talk to customers. Or there's some people
Yep.
there's some people that come along and there's great people that treat you with respect right from the start. And if you show them respect, they'll show you respect, and no worries at all. And the only time you lose their respect is if you've done something worthy of losing it. Where you've got the other side, which is people that will not show you any respect unless they feel like you've earned it from them. And those sorts of the people, and you can usually tell it straight away, those are the people that I see, and I see them come in and I go, I really don't think this is right for you. I don't think that someone with that sort of personality should be running their own business, because if you're going to be speaking like that to someone like me, or, that's, only here to help them out, how are you going to speak to customers? Yeah. And maybe I'm wrong about it, but for that reason, when I'm recruiting franchisees into my region, I will not bring someone on if I don't think they're the right fit. And you can usually just get a bit of a feeling, like you just know with the sort of person that you're talking to if they're a good person or not. And I said this to you the other day, but I think very, very highly of you. I mean, you could be the sort of person that just goes out. You're a very successful lawn mowing business owner and garden care and all the rest of it. You could just go do that, but what you do as a person is you try and find a way to improve the industry as a whole. Like, you do these podcasts so that new contractors or existing contractors can learn from it, and you bring people like myself on, or other people that have got all these different experiences. You've created MoQuo, which is a quoting app, because a lot of people just wing it. They don't know how to quote jobs, and they just do it through trial and error. But what you're doing is really, really genuinely helping the industry, and I think it just shows what sort of person you are. And I can judge people pretty well, I think, and I'm very critical when I do bring people on, because I want to make sure they're the right person for the role, because I'm going to be the person coaching them and spending years of my time developing them and mentoring them. So I want to make sure I get along with them.
Well, thanks for the kind words. I feel like I resonate with what you're saying with the potential side of things, and being like, if you have, it'd be far more sad, I think, to get to the end of your life to have had potential and never tried to fulfill that. But for me as well, like with my health condition, because I've had very challenging times in my business life, and that's a thing that I can really relate to. And I remember very vividly not having the information that I wanted to find, and having to stumble and learn and work it out on my own. And it's an honor for me when I get a message from somebody who's like, oh, I just did this, and I listened to the podcast and I really enjoy it, and I found it really helpful. And I've had a couple of messages this week. We're Tuesday afternoon, I think, and it's literally like people have reached out, and it's the best part of my job, and it's the best part of anything I do, because even if I wasn't successful financially, to know that other people have been successful financially provides a kind of satisfaction that is, I guess, deeper and more meaningful. And I think, like, that's, like you're saying, like there's a part of you that if you got to the end of your life and you're like, I got $4 billion, like you mentioned before, yeah, cool, you got $4 billion. But then there's a certain amount of money you couldn't even spend it if you had it. And if you had that without the other side of it, I think I'd make that trade-off. It sounds like you would do the same too.
For me, it's about the journey. Like, if someone came to me and said, hey, I'd like to give you $4 billion, like, of course, everyone would say yes to it. But you sort of go, well, what am I doing with my life now? Like, you need to have some sort of meaning. You can't go, oh, well, I've got $4 billion, I'm just going to do nothing now. Like, for me, it's, what am I actually achieving in my life, and what's my life about? So that's how I see it. One of the things is I'm very passionate about the way that I coach the new franchisees coming through, because if I've recruited them, I felt like they're good enough to be a franchisee and they are going to succeed, I want to make sure that I do everything to make sure that they do. And so a lot of people come in and they just have no idea what they're doing. And so from day one, I'm just sitting there calling them every week and just, going through the motions and making sure they know what they're doing. But from what I see, and this is how I tend to coach in a brief way, when a new franchisee starts up, a lot of them think, I'm just going to take on mowing jobs. I'm just going to take on mowing jobs. And I tend to go, well, all right, well, most mowing jobs are 40 minutes, maybe an hour. So what are you going to do? The first week, you're going to go quote 30 or 40 jobs and then do them all as well to be able to make sure that you've got a good income coming through? Or are you going to find another way to bring in revenue where it's more efficient so that you're not running around like a headless chook just trying to get it done? And so I tend to steer a lot of franchisees towards doing more garden cleanups, just because, a lot of your garden cleanups might be a 1-day job or a 3-day job or whatever it is.
Yep.
And so by them going out and quoting a few of those, they can book themselves out for like 2 weeks in advance pretty easily. And then they fit their little mowing jobs in between, and they've got themselves time and money now coming through in their business so it's not so stressful. And then, I'll get them to squeeze mowing jobs in, do quotes, when they get time in between it as well. And then from that, they're able to then book in work for their 3rd or maybe their 4th week or whatever it is for more mowing jobs. Yes, they obviously still have garden cleanups that they're going to be doing, but they're slowly building the business. And by the time they get to, 3 or 6 months in, let's say, they're not really needing to take on work from the call center anymore, because they've got regular clients. They've got mowing customers they're doing on a fortnightly basis, and they've got 40 hours of work for these regular clients. And then once you get them to that point, you go, well, I can see you're not taking on work from the call center. How about we take your business to the next level? How about you, instead of just doing residential jobs with your push mower that you bought in the business that cost you $30,000, what about you get yourself a commercial ride-on mower and get yourself some better 2-stroke equipment and you upgrade, or you get better battery-operated equipment, whatever it is, and start to take on more contracts. So they start to take on the body corporate jobs, the minor villages, the acreage, all that sort of stuff. And it's interesting to see how they bring that work in. Like some of the guys take on council tenders that have employees and stuff. And then from that point, you go, all right, well, now you're full of work again and you're now doing contract jobs. Do you want to continue to build your business? If you do, awesome. Let's think about bringing on employees. And then from that point, that's where I go, well, we're going to bring on an employee, start them from the basics, doing a mowing round of residential clients again, and get them to earn you $700 per day. And it just, for me, it's just like this step-by-step almost guide to be going, where you're up to, right, now I know where you need to be. And that's something that really, really excites me, and I'm very, very passionate about.
And you know what it means? Like when people in small businesses have success, what that really means is that they're spending more time with their family, or they're going on holidays they wouldn't have gone on before, or their kids are getting a better birthday present than they would have before. It's usually, that's, not everybody, but most of the time that's what happens. Most of the time when your franchisees, I always get mixed up, but when the guys who you're helping out have success, it's not a CEO of a multi-international corporation making, so much money, he's getting his 17th yacht for his 15th Ferrari. That's why there's so much fun, I think, in helping people have success in this industry, because you know that it's going to something that's meaningful, not somebody just making, more cash to prop up their, I guess, insecurities or a number in their bank account.
Well, for those of you, I think most people know what Jim is like these days, but he doesn't spend a lot of money on himself at all. A lot of it goes towards his biotech company that he's got, and the science that he's doing to be able to figure out why humans and species act the way that they do. But the thing that I think is fascinating about Jim is he's 71 or 72 years old or whatever it is, and he just keeps working, and he's still doing 7 days a week, and he still handles every single customer complaint, and he still has his thumb on the pulse and knows exactly, for the most part, what's going on in the business. The other thing is there's a bit of an aura, I suppose, when you're speaking to him, because he doesn't speak a lot, but when he does speak, you want to make sure that you listen to every word, because there's so many gold nuggets in it. So where there's some people that you meet that just speak because they like the sound of their own voice, or they're very opinionated, and you go, well, look at your results. why are you so opinionated? Like, you haven't really done anything, you haven't really achieved anything, but you're the person that's the loudest in the room. And it does become quite irritating, because the people that you really want to hear from, that have proven results and have really succeeded in life, I suppose, are almost, they have to be quiet to let the other people talk and get their, feelings on the table. But when you talk to Jim...
I think... Sorry, you go.
Yeah, go on.
There's an internet delay. We're talking over each other. You go, and I'll wait for this internet delay to pass.
When you talk to Jim, there's like this respect that you have for him, because the way that he makes most of his decisions, from what I can see, is it's like he uses his heart, not his head. So if he thinks that he can trust you and you're a decent person and, you've done really well and you've got good results, then he'll usually go, all right, well, I'll give you a shot. And, he'll give him all the time in the world. Unfortunately, there are times where I think he's just a bit too trusting of some of the wrong people that get into his ear. But for the most part, I think that he makes his decisions based off what would be the right decision for that person at the time. Not so much what's going to make him the most money. Like, obviously, at the end of the day, you want to run a business and make money from it. But it's just, I think it's because of his Christian values that he goes, well, what's the right thing to do in this situation? And that's where a lot of people have so much respect for him, because of the way he upholds himself.
Well, what I was going to say, you were talking about people being very loud without much substance. And I've noticed this a lot especially in LMCA. Like, I've got to be, I love LMCA, right? And I've talked about it positively a million times on the podcast, but it is certainly true. And I see these people, like, there's a lot of people that criticize Jim, and I can understand it, because he says some weird stuff every now and then, and he says some very, it's worded bluntly. And he's blunt sometimes with some of his opinions. And he's not always right. But no one ever is. But at the end of the day, the guy's got thousands of franchises under him. And many people have been with him for decades. Or, 10 years plus. And you go, his track record just craps on just about everybody else. Right? There's very few people who would even be in that ballpark of success in whatever franchise, in multiple industries. And the idea that somebody who's doing 150 grand a year can just completely write him off. And I'm talking about different than specific constructive criticisms. They're different. I don't mind constructive criticism. Go, till the cows come home. But there's some people who they're super critical. And it's if we were to put their resume next to each other, Jim Penman, versus guy on the internet, you just wouldn't listen to the guy on the internet. And I want to be clear here. I don't mind people having constructive criticism, but that's not what it is. A lot of the time it's just, Jim's this or Jim's that. And there's plenty of other people who've been criticised. I've seen you get criticised for it. And I'm like, why? There's so few people who have done what you've done in the industry. And even if you are wrong on something every now and then, there's no way that I would write off what your opinions, or I'd write you off completely. I would just go, no, like Dan, he's got a drive that's rare. He's done, going from McDonald's to trying some few other jobs to first week in business, $3.5 grand. Not many people are doing that. They're buying clients or whatever, but like your story is something that's people, whether or not they disagree or agree with you on everything, should actually go, no, this guy's actually done some awesome stuff. I should at least listen. And I just find at the moment, I've talked about this off air, that there are some very loud voices who speak as if they have that level of experience. But if you were to look underneath, look under the bonnet, you would find that there's not a lot there.
Well, there's always going to be people that criticise, and there's still people that criticise me in my role and everything else. And the people that criticise Jim, you just sort of roll your eyes at, because you go, well, if you're so good and you're so smart, why don't you go prove me wrong? Why don't you go do it for yourself and do it better than I have, or do it better than Jim has, or, But they won't. Most of them are keyboard warriors, and truthfully probably wouldn't even say it to your face either if they were standing right next to you.
Yeah. Do you know,
So,
when I was younger in business, I used to, we're almost 12 years into our business. First couple of years, I was heavily critical of everybody and anything that wasn't my business because, if I'm being totally honest, it came from an insecurity. And the insecurity was, I need jobs because I need to pay bills. And when I talk to clients, if I hear them saying, and it wasn't like a conscious thing, but if I hear them criticizing the last guy, I would jump on that back. Oh, yeah, I've heard some bad things about them too, or this or that, whatever. And just because gyms are so plentiful, there's so many of them, that would end up being criticizing gyms. And I was thinking about this last night. I was thinking about this podcast. I can remember a job that I did. I could take you to that place right now. A guy, 10 minutes from here, I quoted him many, many years ago, right? This may be 7, 8, 9 years ago. I quoted him and he goes, hey, we want this job done. He's like, I'm currently getting gyms to do it and I'm not very happy with the job. And I criticized the guy. And the guy really ripped into this gyms guy. I didn't criticize them much, but I was like, oh, yeah, I've heard some bad things about him and blah, blah, blah. And I sort of sided with the client. And I regretted that because 6 months later, I hated working for this guy. This guy was an outright whinger. He just was a bad client. And his criticism did not, in my opinion, reflect the gym's contractor at all because he started criticizing me. And I was like, mate, well, your expectation for what you want. And, this guy was on a 3-weekly cut, which again, that shows you how early I was in business because I didn't do them for that long. But he was a 3-weekly cut and he wanted an amazing finish and he didn't want to do any other products or anything. And when it wasn't lush and green and happy all the time, it was, what's wrong with this? And I'm the fault. And I realized, I'm like, man, I was just looking for things. I was looking for things to go wrong so I could criticize because I was insecure. And I think there's a bunch of guys out there who do that with anybody, anyone who's having success. It's a tall poppy syndrome. And I was a part of that earlier on. And now I'm the opposite, where if somebody was to criticize a previous contractor, I now have red flags for that client. I don't criticize the contractor. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. You don't like your last contractor? And now I'm looking at you suspiciously as a client. It's completely changed.
Yeah, I know what you're saying because no contractors that I know of go out of their way to do a bad job for a client. Like, it's just not a thing. All of us are here for a simple reason. We want to be able to provide for our family. I think that's why most people do it, or they want to be able to provide a better life. And we're all just giving it our best shot and doing the best that we possibly can. And, then you have people that come in and just, absolutely tear shreds off you. And it gets you down because you go, well, I've put so much effort into this. I care so much about it. And people don't realize the words that they say really, really do affect you. And it's clients, it's people on Facebook that put their comments on. It's, whatever it is that's coming through. But it's just, it's really not necessary. Like, if you're seeing someone that's doing well, instead of going, well, it's because they're a cheat or whatever it is, or this is the reason, maybe go, well, what can I learn from this person? They're doing something that maybe I would like to achieve and do that. Maybe I should go and ask them what is it they're doing so I can become better, not just, oh, well, they're only doing well because of this reason. And, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you want someone else to fail when they've got nothing to do with your life?
Exactly. And I would also say, why... It's not just why would you want them to fail, why wouldn't you want them to succeed? Because the way that I would look at it is if gyms succeeds, the more that gyms succeeds, the more that independents succeed too. Because if gyms guys are charging $200 an hour, right, and I need $100 an hour to survive, it's very easy for me as an independent to charge $150 if a gyms guy's previously been there and just quoted $200, right? Like, why wouldn't an independent want gyms to thrive? I don't get it. And I don't get this criticism of the franchise system as a whole, because in any industry, in any place, like you would have, say, take Domino's, for example, or, there's all sorts of franchises in all sorts of industries. Franchises have a very good track record of being a successful business model. And I just don't understand the outright criticism of it. But like you said, you wouldn't want someone to succeed. So you wouldn't want someone to fail. Why would you want that? But even the success of your competitors often actually helps you succeed too. As long as you're doing good work, you'll stay in business. People will still want you. And if they're getting a lot, you can get pretty close to that. Maybe you can exceed it. I just don't get why we keep cutting each other down.
You know what? It doesn't just happen from people in the comment section and that. It happens, I think, in industries with people as well. Like, I cop a bit of heat from franchisors from gyms mowing that have other regions. Now, they run their business, I run mine. But I think I said this comment, and I didn't realize how much it was going to upset people. But I said that if you're going to be a franchisor and you're going to have this, huge responsibility of coaching new franchisees that have no idea how to run a business and coaching existing franchisees on how to improve their business and continue to build it, then you need to have experience. You need to know what you're doing, and you would expect someone in that sort of position to have already run a lawn mowing business, but not just run a lawn mowing business, but run it successfully and have proven results and done quite well to be able to coach people. And I didn't realize that me saying that statement would hurt or upset that many franchisors, because what I had was franchisors coming to me or going to Jim or our general manager saying, I'm so offended by what he said. I feel like this is a personal attack. How disgusting of him to say that, and these people, funnily enough, had no experience running mowing businesses at all. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but I stand by my comments. I don't mean to go out of my way to hurt people, but why are you a franchisor? Why are you in this role if you don't have experience coaching people, or if you don't have experience running a mowing business? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Because of that, I ended up becoming, I suppose, a bit of a black sheep within Jim's Mowing as far as the franchisors were concerned, or a few of them. And, those people that didn't really have great results, because, of course, they're not going to have great results if they don't know how to run a mowing business, ended up, it started affecting me to the point where they ended up removing my YouTube videos from online, all the Jim's Mowing YouTube videos of me. It's weird how that sort of stuff happens. Maybe one day, the people in national office come to their, get in their right mind and put them back on, but it just doesn't make sense. If I'm creating videos to help show people how to run a mowing business, wouldn't you want that for everyone?
Can I just say that what you said is absolute common sense? It's not even that it's fringe ideas that may or may not be supported. But if somebody has run a lawn mowing business before, they will have more support and better advice than somebody who hasn't. And that's not to say that you couldn't possibly get good advice, but I mean, I sell a course. It's $800. If I hadn't done stuff in the industry, there's no way that I'd want to sell a course relevant to the industry if I hadn't done stuff in the industry. I couldn't do that, right? So I don't know personally anybody that you're talking about. I'm not part of the organization, and I'm not saying if someone wants to get up in arms or whatever that I don't like anybody. I'm just saying that that's common sense. Why would you get criticized for it?
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. So, yeah.
Well, I would just like to add to everything that we're saying. I think, I've said this before, if somebody is trying to help people in this industry, I'm a fan of what you're doing. Even if I disagree with you, if that makes sense. Even if I'm like, let's say I didn't like gyms, and I do like gyms. Right? I think this is the 4th time I've had a gyms guy on the podcast, right? We've done Joel, we've had Jim, we've had yourself. I've done a tour of gyms. If I didn't like gyms, I wouldn't have them on the podcast. I like gyms. But even if I didn't like what you were doing, and you're out there making videos that are trying to help people, and 15 people get helped, good on you. You've helped 15 small businesses. why would I be against that at all? And so, I just don't get the criticism. I don't get people who shoot down Jim. Jim's, like, I've heard him say this before. Maybe he said it when he was on the podcast. He might have made more millionaires than just about anybody else in the country, right? Why would you want to criticize that guy?
For sure.
Yeah, just because constructive criticism, yeah. But I almost feel like the rift between the independents and the gyms guys, which, let's be honest here, is only a fraction of the independents criticize the gyms guys. There's a lot of guys out there who are friends with gyms guys or other franchise, whatever. The quicker we can get rid of that rift, the better the industry would be, because then you start opening up. Just be honest, some people are going to do better franchises. Some people are going to be better to do it on their own, be independent. But everyone will be better if they start supporting each other. So, get rid of the criticism, move on from that. Anything else you want to say on that subject? I've got another 15 questions. We can keep talking about business lessons and everything else.
No, I don't think we've spoken much about Florida yet, or anything to do with America.
No, we haven't.
What the plans are.
We're like an hour plus into this podcast. Okay, going in. We are getting some internet delays as well. So why don't you tell me, I'm giving you the mic for a while here, what is the plan with Florida? When's it happening? Why Florida? What's the whole thing with this, right? And are you a little bit crazy to even take on such a challenge?
Yeah, I'm definitely crazy, I think, but I'm definitely excited about it as well. As I said, the whole me being a franchisor for gyms going Northern and Eastern Australia and building the regions up and selling more businesses and coaching more franchisees is all a way to be able to prove to myself and Jim and whoever else that I can take on this America venture. And so I'm starting in Florida because of the tropical element. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because in most other states, bar like California, it snows. And I don't know anything about snow plowing at all, in the slightest. So, but I know mowing very, very well. I can build mowing rounds, no worries at all. And so I feel confident doing it in that area. There's quite a fair few people there. Florida nearly has the size of Australia's population just in that one state. Wow. And what I've seen from doing a bit of research is there's a few franchises going around. There's Lawn Doctor is one of them. US Lawns is another one of them. The Ground Guys is another one of them. But from looking into it a bit more, I'm trying to figure out what my opportunity is in the market. And I think I might have found it. And so what I think it is a lot of these companies will do a lot of landscaping as well. Now, Jim's Mowing, although we offer landscaping, it's not the main thing. In fact, I think that maybe I've probably got, out of the 200 franchisees I look after, I've probably got maybe 5 that do landscaping. And it's not even really full-time. But with these businesses over in Florida, I'm sure they're fantastic and make great revenue. But it seems that the investment price to be able to buy into them is quite expensive. Like, from what I was looking at, the buy-in price for, Lawn Doctor is $133,000 to $149,000, it says on their website. The total investment for US, US, exactly, which is even more than what it is in Australia, yeah. US Lawns is $60,000 to $136,000. The Ground Guys is $88,000 to $234,000 total investment. And I look at that and I go, well, I'm charging $30,000 including GST for a full setup, which is for just a residential mowing round. But you've got your Jim's mowing trailer, you've got your Honda self-propelled HRU 216, you've got your steel brush cutter, steel blower, steel hedger, uniforms, insurance, training, everything that you need to be able to start this business for $30,000 Australian. That's not even American. And I look at this and I go, well, surely over there would be people that wouldn't be able to afford $130,000 on average to be able to invest into a lawn mowing business. But I'm sure there would be people that might be able to afford $30,000 or $40,000 or whatever it is. I'm not sure what price I'm going to set yet. I've got to figure that out. It may be less, who knows, because of the conversion rate. But I think that would be, more of the market. And maybe that means that those other businesses, they have better revenue because they do bigger landscaping jobs and they have teams on and all the rest of it. But maybe there's people that, go, all right, well, I'll try Jim's Mowing and maybe I just want to do as a solo operator and not have too much risk involved. Maybe they do want to build as a team and they can do that like I have in Jim's Mowing. And the flat rate that we charge as well is also, I don't know many franchises, if any, that do a flat rate franchise fee. Like most franchises are based off commission, like 10% commission or, similar prices to that. Where gyms in Australia is, essentially $200 per week for your franchise fees, or $800 a month, however you want to look at it. Which I don't know what that converts to over in America, but it just seems like I think there's an opportunity in the market, and I think it's for people that can't afford, $30,000.
I can see, like, when you're wording it that way, having no clue about what America is like on that front. But for me, like, just understanding, like, where your story is, gone from McDonald's to where you are now, you resonating with that type of person, how many people over there could you help have their own McDonald's to reasonable income story? And like you say, like, okay, maybe there's some other things about these other franchises that, everything's got its pros and cons. But what if you, get back to the meaning of the story? What if you could get to the end of your life and go, there's 100 people in America who doubled their income because they joined gyms? What a story. Wouldn't that be worth it? And people might go, 100 people, there's thousands in Australia. Man, that would be an awesome. I just hearing what you're saying there, like, I'm getting excited. I'm not even involved. I don't even want to go to America. But I think for you, like, you could be really onto something here.
It is. It's exciting. I like the idea of helping people in their lives. I really do. It's something that I'm very passionate about. And if I can help more people by getting more people to start up and seem to, even if they see, a tiny bit of what I did or whatever it is, it's just like, if I've improved their lifestyle in any way and given them more time with their kids or more time with their family or whatever it is, like, isn't that a good thing? And so, as I said, this will probably be I think after this will be what I do with the business. I don't think I'll push any further after the America thing. I want to try and spend more time with my kids and my family and everything, but I'm going to give it everything I've absolutely got. And at the moment, in Australia, I sell about 70 businesses a year or something like that for Jim's Mowing. But even if I can sell, 10 a year over there, it's better than nothing, and it's going to get the brand up and going, and I'm sure it will continue to grow from there. I assume I'll be able to sell more than that, but it's a different market, but same sort of ball game though. Lawn mowing is lawn mowing. It doesn't really matter where you go.
There are some fundamentals, yeah. There's some fundamentals that are transferable in any way, shape, or form, and one of the biggest ones is marketing. And what I see with Joel, people remember Joel Kleber, who was on the podcast maybe a year ago now. I think Joel's one of the smartest guys in the industry, and I'm not just saying that because, I know the guy, but when I see the way that he's posting, he really knows his marketing stuff. I see him on LinkedIn, and he's really sharp with it. And I can imagine that he could do a really good job of getting the brand name out in America. Probably better than most people could. So, I mean, to have that behind you, to have Jim, to have Joel, yourself, trying to get into a different country, that's a pretty good team. And you've got the drive. I'm very curious to, maybe we should do, well, when are you starting? And maybe once you've launched it over, maybe we should do a check-in after a year and go, how has it gone? Was it the dumbest thing you've ever done? Was it the greatest thing you've ever done? Something in between?
Well, to get the visa, I need about $200,000 American. Now, I had to, for the last region I bought, I had to get a loan. Probably got about $100,000 left on that loan to be able to pay off that last region. So that would be done pretty quickly. I had to, I've paid all my taxes, so they're all done and everything's up to date. Everything that's coming in, I'm just, pocketing it away for this America thing, which, that 200,000 American is loosely about 350 Australian. So I'm going to save that amount of money, which I've already got I'm slowly getting there. I'm actually doing quite well with it. Once I've got that, I think that I'll have it by I don't know, but before the end of the year, definitely. But it's just how far before. I'll head over there. I'll organise, the visa to be able to get it all done. And as you said, with someone like Joel behind me doing the, helping out with the marketing and everything, and someone like Jim and the team that we've got at National Office and the finance people and the documents people
Yeah.
and just a whole lot of it, I do feel quite confident in it. I really do, and it would be great. I mean, if I grow this and it turns out well, I mean, how awesome would it be if I could, you know, do one up on Jim and get more franchisees in America than what he's done in Australia? So, but
Do you think
whether or
at a
not,
certain point he'd get jealous, or he'd be proud? Which way would he go?
nah, he'd be proud, but I'd probably rub it in his face. So,
Oh
but
dear.
that would, yeah. So this America thing, I'm going to give it everything I've possibly got, and this will probably be the last thing that I do, and then, I'll probably take it easy and just spend more time with the kids and the family and that. So,
Mate,
yeah,
I love the passion. I love that you are not just because a lot of guys could get to your position, like what you just said there, where you're like, I've got to save this money, and it shouldn't be too much. I'll get to the end of the year. I don't want to know what your personal finance situation is, but that's giving us a window into it. And a lot of guys would hear those kind of numbers and go, "Man, I would just stop." If I'm getting that, if I can save 300 grand in a year, like I'm not stressing about too much. I'm not trying to go to America, but I love there's a drive in you that wants to keep pushing. And this comes back to the conversation we had. Like, people will criticize you because they don't know this sort of stuff and they don't know what your passion actually is. And they'll hear this story and they'll go, maybe I've been a bit too quick to criticize this guy. Maybe I've been too quick to jump on a negative bandwagon there, because you're actually just trying to help people, and you're actually sacrificing 350 grand to get a visa, just to get a visa. I mean, you can
well,
spend
I
that
could do
$5
it a
million
lot
Trump
easier.
gold card if you want. So you go.
Oh yeah, I could do that. But I could do it a lot easier if I just sold my region in Australia, Northern and Eastern Australia. I am, but what is it? I've spent over $1 million of my own money on this region in Australia, and I'd like to be able to hold on to, especially the Queensland and Northern Territory sort of area, is what I really want to hold on to. But if I sold that off, that wouldn't be a worry. I'd have the money and plenty more. But I want to hold on to that for as long as I possibly can, because you never know. I don't want to go in and just go, hey, I'm chucking everything away, and you know, if this doesn't work out, at least I've got something to come back to. But if it turns out that it's fantastic, then I could go, well, maybe I'll sell off this region and get the money from that. But at the moment, as I said, I'm doing what I feel is right, and probably just listening to I suppose my heart more than my head at the moment, and just seeing where it takes me. But it's definitely exciting to see where this will go.
So do you think you'll start mowing lawns there yourself, just to get a feel of what it's like before you start talking to people? Or are you going to meet up with some other contractors in the area? How are you going to get used to the American culture, the way that they do things? Is there a planned strategy with that?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to start building up mowing rounds. So I'm going to go do it myself. I'm going to get on the tools and I'm going to build up these rounds. And the reason that I'm sure I'm going to do that is because I'm not sure what the lead generation is going to be like at first. Now, I know there's a lot of people there, but you never know. Like, you're going into the unknown. So if I already build up mowing rounds and sell them off, then I won't need to supply as many leads to that franchisee that started up, because they'll already have a round. So they're not going to need to
Yep.
take on too much from our call center. So I'll build up mowing rounds. I don't know how many I'm going to build up. I don't know how tired I'm going to get. I plan on videoing it as well, so I'm going to try and video as much as I possibly can and put it on YouTube with Joel's help.
That'd be awesome.
And maybe that teaches people how I build up rounds, and just residential mowing rounds. But that's the idea. And then from doing that, I'll continue to get other people to also build up rounds and maybe split part of their business. And I might even get subcontractors to look after the rounds for me. And then when I'm ready to find a franchisee to buy it, then I'll take those clients and sell them on to that new franchisee.
Yeah. Well, I mean, mate, hats off to you. Do you know what? I reckon this is a great place to finish. You're going to make some content, so people get excited for that. How do people find you if they're wanting to join up for this journey?
Well, I do have my own YouTube channel if you just search Dan Cahill. Otherwise, I mean, you can always email me at dan.cahill@jimsmowing.net. I've cleared my email inbox maybe like 3 times a day. So, yeah, but if anyone wants to get in contact with me, you can even send me a personal message on Facebook or anything as well, and I'll respond to you there. And yeah, you know, I'm probably not going to put my phone number on this podcast just because you'll get prank calls. But if
I'll do it for you. It is no.
Yeah, but no, if anyone does want to know about the American stuff, or anyone wants any help at all with anything, even if it's a lawn mowing business or anything else at all, just feel free to reach out, and I'm very happy to help people out, and it's something that I'm really passionate about.
Well, mate, I'm going to be following with great excitement. I wish you all the best. I hope that we can kind of do the I was going to say do the dirty on the Americans. We don't want to do that. We just want to go give them a little bit of a taste of their own medicine. All their franchises that have come over here, which to be honest I'm a fan of, Domino's and KFC and all that sort of stuff. Let's go hit them back. Let's take an iconic Aussie franchise and make it successful in America. That would be really cool. That would be really cool to see. And again, back to the encouraging and the supporting each other. I don't know why, if somebody was an Australian, that they wouldn't want you to succeed as well, other than, I don't know, their own issues. But I hope that the lawn mowing contractor community is coming out and going, we'd love this guy to have success. Let's take an Aussie icon, put it in America, and help some American people as well have some success in their own small business. So, mate, thanks for coming on. We've got a big internet delay, but thank you so much for coming on. And everybody else, we'll see you in the next podcast.